Okay, so good morning, everyone. We'll start with prayers, then do a little meditation on the topic we're currently looking at, which is the perfection of ethics. Yes, so prayers, do we need them on the screen? Oh, sheets, okay. So for the prayers, you can visualize the Buddha in front. You can visualize a whole refuge field if you wish, or just the Buddha embodying all objects of refuge, and then really sincerely take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha for the benefit of all sentient beings, to be able to follow the path to enlightenment, become a Buddha ourselves, so that we can help all other beings reach enlightenment as well.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, oneness gone, foe destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I proclaim, make offerings, and go for refuge. When I was supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paved 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies formed supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not incomparable, wise one, to you I bow. Great compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, filled with merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms, unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings, the holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, foreland, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you, may all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the states of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhist, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
So take a few moments to refresh the motivation you generated earlier today of wanting to benefit others, not harm them, and wanting to use your life to create the causes for enlightenment, to be able to help all other beings in the best possible way. And then think that is your reason for being here, listening to this class on the Lamrim, the stages of the path to enlightenment. So let's do a little bit of contemplation on the meaning of ethics. So it's explained that ethics is the mind of abandoning harmful actions to others, and also training ourselves to not even have thoughts of harming others. And Geshe Zopa, in his commentary, quoted Shantideva's verse that talks about how all negative actions and all suffering in the world come from self-cherishing, selfish, self-centered thoughts. And Geshe Zopa said this attitude of self-centeredness is kind of like a demon or a devil that makes us do all kinds of things to fulfill our desires, and that it means even harming others. So to investigate this, think of an experience in your life when you did something harmful to another person. It may have been physical or verbal. And when you recall this incident, try to understand what was going on in your mind at that time. What led you to do that action? And see if you can recognize the self-centered attitude. And see if you can recognize other afflictions that were going on in your mind at that time, motivating that action. And see if you can understand how your behavior affected the other person. And what effects did your behavior have on you yourself? So here we're just looking at kind of the short-term, immediate effects of harmful actions, but they also have long-term effects. When we do harmful things, the karma we create, if it's not purified, it can lead to suffering in the future, even bad rebirths in unfortunate situations. And then it's also a hindrance to following the path, making ourselves familiar with harmful attitudes and harmful behaviors, totally contrary to the path we're trying to follow. And so it makes it very difficult for us to achieve our goals of realizations and higher states of mind up to enlightenment. So see if you can generate this heartfelt and strong determination to do your very best from now on to refrain from harmful actions and to work on overcoming even thoughts, attitudes that lead to harmful actions. So here it's talking about harming sentient beings. But what about inanimate objects? harming harming things that aren't sentient beings. What do you think about that? Is that also unethical?
I think technically it's not unethical, but if that thing belongs to somebody else, then you are destroying their property. And if it doesn't belong to somebody else, like say just maybe water that's or seed, well, not everything belongs to every. We've divided up the earth. But let's say if there's object that does not belong to somebody else, then we are practicing that affliction of harming. So technically no karma is accumulated, but the afflictions and the mind that wants to harm is reinforced.
Yeah, I thought of this because with the verses we went through last night in Shantideva's text, there's this discussion about harming illusory beings. Yeah, like the magician's elephant, an elephant created by a magician that isn't really a sentient being. So there was some discussion in the commentary, and one commentary said, it's not killing. Like if we try to, I don't think we could actually kill an illusory elephant. But if we tried to, it wouldn't be killing because it doesn't have a mind. There's no mind there. But trying to harm it, doing actions to try to give harm to it is still negative. There is negative karma created. So I guess it would be the same with a robot. If you destroyed a robot, you're not killing. It wouldn't be the karma of killing because it doesn't have a mind, doesn't have a consciousness, but it's still negative. And like you say, if it belongs to somebody, it's the property of somebody. So then that's kind of harming that person, harming something belonging to them. But just, yeah, getting caught up in that attitude of anger and wanting to harm, wanting to destroy, then, yeah, doing something to an inanimate object. I was thinking also, like pulling a carrot out of the ground and chopping it up for lunch. I mean, in a way, it's harming the carrot, although we probably don't think of it that way. Because, I mean, the whole purpose of growing carrots is to cook them and eat them. But in a way, it is harming the carrot. But it all depends on motivation. Yeah, if your motivation is you want to provide a healthy, nutritious meal to the community, so they have the energy to carry on with their Dharma practice, then it seems like that would be positive, not negative. But on the other hand, while you're chopping up the carrot, if you're thinking about somebody you're angry at and imagining you're chopping that person up, I mean, it's possible, right? It's possible. If you're really, really angry, you could think that way. Then I think that would certainly be negative. So I think a lot depends on your mind, your attitude, what's going on in your mind, what your motivation is, and so on. Daniel, did you want to say something?
Thank you. I just wanted to contribute that the trees, the pine trees that I see walking around, the branches have been trimmed, but you can see, the open wound from where the branches were, and then the sap glistening as it recovers and heals itself. And that's, can be, it affects your mind, affects my mind, just seeing how we connect with and live in the environment. When we see fences made out of wood, those are tree parts, taking away from that, that tree. So, thank you.
Yeah, cutting down trees or even cutting branches off of trees. In a way, it's harming. I don't know. I guess sometimes it's necessary, isn't it, to help a tree to, trim it. There are people who believe trees are sentient beings. Yeah. Buddhism doesn't accept that, but there are people who's, and also in Buddhism it said that there are beings living in trees. And of course some are the ones we can see, like insects, birds, squirrels, but devas, it said that devas will sometimes inhabit trees. That's their dwelling place. So as monastics, we're not really supposed to cut down trees or damage trees, because then it's harming the abodes of sentient beings who, want to live there and don't want their home to be harmed. So.
In the case of the carrot, if the carrot's not conscious, then how is it harming it?
Well, I'm just sort of playing around with the word harm. What does it mean to harm? Because we can do harm to inanimate objects, like if we destroy them, like you destroy a table or pick up a vase and throw it against the wall. That's harming. But yeah, I guess it depends on what you mean by harm, the word harm. I didn't look it up in the dictionary, but I think it can be used with inanimate things, isn't it? Doing harm to nature, harming nature, for example. So I don't think it, at least in English, I don't know about Tibetan, but in English it can, it doesn't necessarily imply there's a being, a sentient being, who's the object of harm.
I think about like a carrot or a tree. It's not a sentient being, but it definitely has some sort of life force that can be severed. We trim the trees. We're trying to trim trees in a way that we're not severing that life force, but helping it. I prune apple trees so that we get more fruit and that they don't go into decline. I was thinking, as far as if I owned a huge piece of property and I had millions of trees and I own them, but if I cut them down, I'm affecting other people on this planet all the way around the planet, because of what's going on with the climate right now is based on a lot of people cutting down trees they, quote, own. Big companies, and so.
Like our neighbors.
Yeah. With the, also with harming something that's not animate, what comes to my mind is violent video games.
What?
Violent video games.
Violent video games.
So I might be killing someone on the screen and that being doesn't have a mind. But I think about how it would affect my mind. And so that's where the karma is being created.
Yeah.
Is because the person doing the action has a mind.
Yeah, I think it's similar with dreams. Sometimes we can have violent dreams and we kill somebody in a dream. So it's not really killing, because there isn't a sentient being that's being killed, but it's, increasing that mind, that attitude. I mean, we have killed in past lives, so we do have that imprint to kill. And if we even just visualize killing or kill in a video game, it's just increasing that propensity to kill and making it possible that one day we will kill an actual being. So I think it is good to try to not do those kind of actions, even if it's just to an inanimate being or an illusory being. just to stop that kind of attitude. And then I was also thinking about beating up pillows in therapy. You know, that's something that, yeah, if you're really angry, then you're encouraged to beat a pillow.
And what's about if you have a lot of anger and you kind of go out in the woods and like shout it out? Is it helpful, or is it like
Yeah,
could it be
that's
negative too?
That's another technique people use to release their anger. They just go to some place where there's nobody around and they scream and yell, and maybe they say obscenities just to get their anger out. I don't know. I mean, in a way, it's certainly better than doing those things towards a sentient being, beating up a sentient being or screaming at a sentient being. So there is some sense of not wanting to harm another being, but you know, there's this strong anger that you don't know what else to do with, so you release it. And I think I heard or read Thich Nhat Hanh made some comment about this, you know, that beating up a pillow, in a way you're releasing your anger, but you're not really dealing with it. You're not getting to the root of the anger. So maybe just releasing that energy, but the anger is still there. It hasn't been dealt with. So it's better to use meditation, use thought training. You know, we have so many different methods for working on anger. But of course, those methods require being able to sit quietly and think. And sometimes the anger is just too strong. You can't sit still. So if you release it in some non-harmful way, then sit down and meditate and work with the mind, what's actually going on in the mind, and apply the antidotes. That's much more effective. Anyway, this is just something that was going on in my mind, but it is relevant. Like Venerable Sangye said, there's I don't know, there's a lot of these games, and I heard some of them are just absolutely horrible, you know? And it's kind of disturbing to think of kids or even adults playing those games, sometimes for hours, even all night, playing those games, and what is that doing to their mind? And also the people who make these games. I heard there was one that was about a shooting. Yeah, you actually go into a school and shoot people. I mean, come on, why do you want to produce a game like that? Yeah, it's almost like encouraging that kind of behavior, making it normal. Very strange. I guess it's just to make money. Anyway, we are in a weird world right now. Okay, so let's go back to the topic. And last week we were talking about, there was a question that came up about how among the mental factors, we don't actually have a mental factor called compassion. We also don't have one called love. And instead, there's non-harmfulness and non-hatred. So it's said that, yeah, where's compassion in the mental factors? Oh, it's the mental factor of non-harmfulness. So I looked that up. There's one text on the mental factors by Kachin Yeshi Gelsen. It's quite a nice text. And so his explanation of the mental factor of non-harmfulness says, regarding non-harmfulness, the compendium of knowledge, this is a text by a Sangha, Abhidharma text by a Sangha. So that text says, what is non-harmfulness? And the Sanskrit term is ahimsa, which is very famous in India, especially with Gandhi, you know, the whole idea of so it's usually translated as non-violence, non-harmfulness. It was used also in the civil rights movement, just this determination that we're going to work for civil rights, but we're not going to do it in a violent way. Even if we are beaten, yeah, even if we're killed, we are not going to act violently. Amazing. But yeah, they were strongly dedicated to that attitude, ahimsa. So what is non-harmfulness? Response: it is a mind of compassion and is involved with non-hatred. It has the function of not inflicting injury. So it's compassion. It's a mind of compassion. So that means it isn't just kind of being passive and indifferent, because even some animals don't act harmfully, like deer and rabbits, they don't go around harming and killing. But would we say that they have this mental factor of non-harmfulness? Seems like it has to be more than just not harming, but your attitude is out of compassion. And the text continues, just as it has been said above, non-harmfulness is a patience, now it's called patience, that, lacking malice, observes sentient beings, suffering sentient beings, thinking, may they be free of that suffering. So you actually realize that sentient beings are suffering and you want them to be free of suffering. And so, of course, you wouldn't want to give them more suffering. So there is that aspect of compassion there. Then it goes on. This abandoning harm to sentient beings, or non-harmfulness, is the essence of the meaning of the conqueror's scriptures. It's the essence of Buddha's teachings. And then there's a quotation from Sutra saying, patience is the supreme austerity. The Buddha said, patience is supreme nirvana. An ordained one who harms or injures another is not a trainee in virtue. And then it goes on to talk about how, like in our monastic tradition, we are supposed to have a water strainer. This is part of the Vinaya, and it's because in the past, at the time of the Buddha, and even now probably in some countries, the ordained people get their water from rivers or streams or ponds, and there may be sentient beings in the water. And so before drinking or washing with the water, you want to make sure there's no sentient beings that are being harmed. So you strain the water to remove the sentient beings and then take care of them. So this is like, one of the objects that we're supposed to have, water strainer. And that's aspect of compassion. So he says, since one must definitely turn away from harming others as well as their bases, the necessity of equipping oneself with a strainer for the sake of abandoning harm to creatures in water has been taught. And on the occasion of giving the instructions, one is cautioned about the necessity to abide in the four qualities that make one a trainee in virtue. Even when derided, do not deride in return. Even when someone gets angry at one, do not get angry in return. Even when hit, do not hit back. Even when one's faults are exposed, do not expose others' faults. So this is part of our practice, to not retaliate even when harmed by others, verbally or even physically. Therefore, if the intelligent ones analyze and understand this well, they will be able to understand that abandoning harmfulness is the essence of the teachings. So, even though that, this mental factor is called non-harmfulness, so it's expressed in a sort of negative way, the way it's explained, when you look at the explanation, it really is more than just not harming. It's actually having compassion for others, understanding that they suffer, not wanting to cause any suffering to others, and really living that way, and not harming others out of compassion. Is that helpful? Huh? Is it saying that it's synonymous? Well, it doesn't say that. Doesn't really say. I mean, the word, yeah, the term for this mental factor in Sanskrit is ahimsa. I guess himsa must mean harming, violence. So this is the negative ahimsa, non-violence, non-harming. I mean, it doesn't specifically say it's synonymous with compassion, but it's just saying what, like identifying this particular mental factor and saying that it is compassion. And I looked at a few other explanations of the mental factors, and they also say that this is compassion. So I don't know why they don't use the word compassion instead. I don't know. Don't ask me. I didn't write these texts. And maybe it was the Buddha. I don't know if... I guess the mental factors are in the Abhidharma texts. And there's controversy about where those texts came from. Were they really spoken by the Buddha, or they were spoken by arhats? So it's a little unclear. But I'm sure the Buddha did talk about this, the need to have compassion and not harm sentient beings, and that's why we have to have a water strainer. So then, that's the nature of ethics. And then, the nature of ethics is this mind that wants to abandon harming others, and even the thought of harming others. And then we looked at the 3 types of ethics. So the first one is restraining from non-virtuous actions, mainly the 10 non-virtuous actions, as well as any precepts one has taken, pratimoksha precepts, bodhisattva precepts, and so on. So keeping those precepts. And then the second type of ethics is gathering virtuous qualities. So that means cultivating virtue, doing meritorious actions. And the third is bringing about the welfare of sentient beings. And regarding this third one, in Geshe Lodin's book, The Path to Enlightenment in Tibetan Buddhism, he says that this third one includes any form of Dharma practice, which is interesting. Any form of Dharma practice is working for the welfare of sentient beings, but also all the actions of body, speech, and mind we do, motivated by the wish to benefit others. So I guess when we do morning prayers, morning practices, and we're doing those for the benefit, having the wish to benefit sentient beings, even though if we're just sitting quietly on our meditation seat, not actively doing things to benefit others, it's still benefiting sentient beings, bringing about the welfare of sentient beings. So it doesn't necessarily mean going out and distributing food to the hungry and so on, but our Dharma practice with that motivation. But this book has just a really short explanation of this, and in other books it mentions 11 ways of benefiting others. So I thought to go through those. So from volume 6, the Courageous Compassion. In that book, under the explanation on ethics, it mentions these 11. It says there are 11 groups of people. I don't know why it only has to be people, but maybe it can be more than people. But anyway, we at least start with people. 11 groups of people to be particularly diligent about benefiting. the first one, it's not working. Anyway, I'll just keep going. The first is aiding those who are suffering or ill. So those who really have like acute suffering or illness, giving them assistance. So some examples would be helping someone who cannot walk well, who's like disabled and has difficulty walking, so helping that person. Preparing food for someone who's recovering from an injury or illness, like here, you know, we have a few members of the community who are ill, so bringing food to them. Visiting people in the hospital. So those are just a few examples. And it says the wonderful work done by hospice staff and volunteers is included here too. Yeah, so lots of people are involved in helping those who are ill. So that includes doctors, nurses, other people working in the hospitals, including the cleaners and technicians, and there's something else that popped in my mind, now it's gone. Yeah, like Catholic, there's Catholic nuns and priests, monks who also work to help those who are ill, suffering, aged, dying, and so on. So any work we do to help those who are really suffering or ill is included. And then the second is guiding people who are obscured or ignorant of means to help themselves. So these are people who don't know how to help themselves. So we can help them by, for example, explaining proper behavior to the reckless. So those who are behaving in a reckless way and creating a lot of problems for themselves and others. So explaining, you know, what is the proper way to behave. Counseling those preparing to be released from prison on what to say in job interviews. So that's, but also helping them while they're in prison, like some people here do. So they are, they have a lot of difficulties just knowing how to behave properly. That's how they ended up in prison, and of course they want to get out of prison. And so if we can help them learn how to manage their minds and how to manage their behavior so that they don't behave in harmful ways, illegal ways and so on, then that's very beneficial for them. And instructing young adults on the way to manage finances. So those are just some examples of helping those who are ignorant of the means to help themselves. Okay, now we got it on. And the third is aiding those who need help to realize their desires. So, for example, helping people move homes. People are moving from one home to another. They have that wish to do so we can help them. Planning events and thinking ahead to what they may need in the future. 4 is helping sentient beings who are afraid, in danger, or about to be killed or injured. So this includes buying animals that are going to be slaughtered and then putting them in a place where they can live. There's lots of people doing that work. It's really wonderful. And animal sanctuaries, you know, dedicating pieces of land and facilities and so on to take care of animals who've been rescued from the slaughterhouse, and giving them a nice life. It's so beautiful, such a wonderful thing to do. And then stepping in to redirect people's attention to prevent a dispute. So people are, about to start fighting with each other, verbally or in other ways. Trying to help them avoid that. Guiding someone who is lost to their destination. Intervening when one person or group is bullying another. Okay, so there's lots of ways of helping people who are in those situations. Working to get rid of the death sentence, if that's still the case in one state. I don't know, what's the situation here in Washington? Is there still death sentence? Huh?
I think that there was a law, right? And then they had it in this state, and I think the governor put a stay on it for a long time. I don't know the status now, if they ever got rid of it, but it had been on just a stay for decades. It's not legal anymore at all? Oh,
She's
okay.
looking. 2023. That was only 2 years ago. Okay, so yay. So I'm sure there were a lot of people working on that to bring that about. Yeah, so that's a good thing to do. And then 5, aiding people who are grieving the death of a dear one or the loss of their social position. So grief is a really painful experience. It can happen due to the death of someone, but also other kinds of losses. Losing a job, losing social position. I'm not sure what that means, losing your social position. I guess if you were wealthy and then lose your wealth, or if you were in a certain class of people, then things happen and you're no longer in that situation. So that can cause grief. So we can console them, listen to their concerns, help them with daily errands. Yeah, apparently that's one of the best ways to help someone who's grieving, because they, kind of makes you disoriented and difficult to just do everyday things like, going shopping and paying your bills. So just offering to help them with those practical things is apparently very, very helpful. And guiding them to reimagine their future. So when that's appropriate, to help them move forward past this loss. Okay, then number 6 is helping the poor and needy. We can do this by giving them material aid in a respectful and appropriate manner. Not looking down on them because they're poor, homeless, and so on. See them as human beings, treat them like human beings. Encouraging them to get in touch with their good qualities, because they probably feel pretty low and hopeless. Helping them to see their value as human beings, no matter what their outer circumstances may be. So there's a lot of wonderful aid organizations doing that kind of work, helping those who are needy. And then number 7, offering assistance to those who need a place to stay, such as the poor, Dharma practitioners, travelers, and stray animals. So this involves thinking of appropriate places where they will be comfortable and safe. Nowadays, so many people in this country who are homeless, don't have a place to stay. So trying to provide them with housing, or places they can stay at least for the night, shelter. But also, Dharma practitioners. So Yeah, there are people who are traveling around, going to different Dharma centers, especially if they're monastics, they need a place to stay, so offering them a place. And stray animals, so we do that here. We sometimes find cats in our property that are endangering the other beings living here, like the little chipmunks and mice and so on. So Venerable Sangye does a wonderful job of giving, trapping them in a non-harmful way and then taking them, what is that place? A place nearby where a woman has particularly cats, that's right, cats, a place for cats. So to take care of them and they get, what's the word? Neutered, so they don't reproduce.
Yeah, they get spayed or neutered and medicine and things like that, and then
try to find homes. Yeah, that's really wonderful work. And then number 8, benefiting people who want to be in harmony. So this is accomplished by teaching them good communication skills, like NVC, yay! Teaching people how to manage their conflicts, their interpersonal problems, so that they can overcome those and be more harmonious. Encouraging them to generate forgiveness, learn how to forgive, talking about the benefits of reconciliation, and so forth. Number 9, assisting those who want to follow the path. So this includes helping those who want to make offerings. Like, we meet people sometimes who have just strong wish to make offerings to the Sangha, to the community, or to the Buddhas, or make offerings on the altars. To study the Dharma, helping those to learn the Dharma, or go on pilgrimage. It may also entail helping people who want to learn the Dharma to meet qualified spiritual mentors and attend teachings. So assisting in those ways, helping them follow the path. So that's our main job here. Everyone's involved in that in some way or another, teaching or facilitating the SAFE program, leading meditations, leading discussions, helping with publications of Dharma materials. So that's a big part of the work of the Abbey. Then 10 is helping sentient beings who are acting negatively or are about to do so. So this can involve preventing them from doing that action if they, haven't yet done it, they're thinking about it, about to do it, so trying to prevent them, or explaining the drawbacks of such actions. We may offer spiritual counsel to those who are on the verge of following a wrong path by steering them towards a virtuous path. Other times we have to take a firm stand to stop someone who's harming others. Taking special interest in a child who is bullying others can help that child see ways to connect with others, which is what they want to do, in a way that will bring happy results. So these are just examples, and I reminded me one time when I was in Singapore, I got a phone call from a man I didn't really know very well. He was more like a friend of a friend. He called me up and told me that he and his wife had just become pregnant. They found out she was pregnant, and he felt, it seems like it was mainly him, he felt it wasn't a good time to have a child because they were about to start a business, and having a child would sort of take away that energy, whatever. Anyway, so he wanted them to have an abortion. And it sounds like he was pushing the wife to do it. She didn't really want to have an abortion. And they were actually that very day, I think they had scheduled to go to an abortion clinic. But he was having second thoughts. And he thought, maybe I'll check with Venerable Sangye Khadro. So I was thinking, oh my goodness, this being, this sentient being in the womb, and here are these adults discussing whether or not to allow it to live. And I thought it doesn't have a right to say anything. It doesn't have a say in this matter, So I didn't want to push him, but I just, talked to him. I don't remember exactly what I said, but another thought that I had was that if the wife didn't really want the abortion and went through with it, she'd probably resent him for that, and that could, cause problems in their relationship. So I'm not sure whether I mentioned that or not, but anyway, whatever I said worked. In the end, he decided, okay, we're not going to do it. And when I hung up the phone, I thought, oh, wow, just a life was just saved. A sentient being was just saved. So I was kind of grateful that I had that opportunity to be part of that decision and save that life, help save that life. So yeah, that's kind of an example of this. Okay, then last one is using supernormal powers, if you have them, to work for the benefit of others. So supernormal powers can be attained on the basis of concentration. So you have to develop calm abiding, and then you have to develop at least the first jhana, the first concentration, which is a really high level of concentration. Then on the basis of that, you can do other things and develop these powers. They include things like being able to read people's minds, being able to see their past lives, see your own past lives, and also magical emanation. You can actually create appearances. So one shouldn't use those powers for any worldly purpose or any self-centered purpose, like to show off, to impress people, to get people to be your disciples or anything like that. That's completely wrong. But if you're trying to help somebody in conventional ways and it doesn't work, then it says you can use your supernormal powers to benefit them. I guess one example would be, there's the story about the Buddha. One of the disciples, I think was it not Ananda, but Nanda maybe? It was actually a relative of the Buddha, and he had strong attachment. I think he'd been married before, and his wife was really beautiful. And so even though he became a monk and he was living in the monastery, he kept thinking about his wife and longing to be with her. So I think the Buddha probably used other means to try to help him, but in the end, created an appearance of hell. This is what can happen if you don't give up your attachment. And then he also created an image of the Deva realms. I don't know which one came first. Do you remember? The Deva realms was first. Okay, yeah, he created a vision of the Deva realms with the gods and the goddesses who were much more beautiful than any human being. And so then Nanda realized, well, his wife wasn't that great. And the Buddha said, yeah, if you practice, if you live ethically and keep your vows and so on, you'll be born in that realm. And so that helped Nanda to have more interest in practicing as a monk. And then I think he also showed a vision of hell. This is what happens if you break your vows. This is where you'll go. So those appearances were created by magical powers, magical emanation, and they helped this man to stay with his determination to live ethically, keep his vows. So anyway, those are 11 ways of helping others, but there's others as well that may not be included there. But this can give us some ideas about how we can practice that type of ethics of bringing about the welfare of sentient beings. Then, so let's continue with the text. So next, on the bottom of page 251, how to generate ethics in one's mind. So it says, pure ethics depend on practicing what should be engaged in and avoided, what should be engaged in and avoided according to the formulated rules of the Buddha. Furthermore, they follow the strong and firm wish to guard one's ethics. For them to arise, you must meditate for a long time on the faults of not guarding them and the benefits of guarding them. This was explained above in the context of persons of medium capacity. That means back on page 181, 182, if you want, you can go back and read that. So the benefits of keeping good ethics and the faults of not keeping them, breaking them, like breaking vows, doing non-virtuous actions, and so on. The Compendium of the Perfections, this is by Aryasura, also says, you cannot attain your own welfare with degenerate ethics, so where would you get the power for the welfare of others? It's like that verse in the 37 practices, isn't it? Yeah, about, how does it go? I can't remember. About, yeah, like, I want to help sentient beings, but if you're not keeping good ethics, it's kind of a joke. Therefore, it's wrong for those who make good effort for others' welfare to loosen their respect for ethics. So there's really no excuse. I'm working for the benefit of sentient beings, so yeah, I can do this, I can do that, doesn't matter so much. So we should be careful about that attitude. And as for these ethics, the path of special attainment, they make one equal to the naturally compassionate. They are of the excellent nature of pure wisdom, free from errors. They're called the best of ornaments. Yeah, it said having good ethics is like ornaments, the best ornaments, not ornaments made of gold and silver and jewels and so on. So you may wear those ornaments, but if you don't have good ethics, you're not really beautiful. But even without any of those other kinds of ornaments, if you have the ornaments of ethics, then that's what really makes somebody beautiful. And they are a salve, not at odds with ordination, a pleasant fragrance that permeates all three realms. Those who have ethics will be nobles among humans, even if they look the same on the outside. And he's explaining these verses. So this means that in reliance upon ethics, your mind stream improves more and more. You become similar in training to the great beings who are naturally compassionate, so the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, and you attain the pure wisdom that has abandoned all seeds of faulty conduct. So this is a kind of wisdom that realizes, yeah, I should give up negative attitudes and negative behavior. Although other ornaments do not beautify the very young or very old, you might disagree with that. Anyway, the ornament of ethics is the supreme ornament for whoever possesses it, whether young, old, or in between, since it pleases everyone. Although other fine fragrances are one-sided, only spreading in the direction of the wind, the scent of ethics fame spreads in all directions. Although the ordained are prohibited from using ointments such as sandalwood, which cool the torment of heat, the ointment that protects from the torment of the heat of the afflictions is suitable and not prohibited for them. So the term in Sanskrit for ethics is shila, and apparently that has the meaning of cool. So yeah, it said that ethics cools us from the heat of afflictions like anger and attachment. These kind of make us hot. So ethics cools us down. Even though the same in possessing the signs of ordination, those who possess the jewel of ethics are more outstanding than anyone else. Again, from the same text, without expressing a word, without much effort, resources and services needed for practice gather. So if we have good ethics, then even we don't have to ask for what we need, it will come. People will want, you can see that here, yeah? I mean, we do sort of let people know that we need food, but still people are happy to support because they can see that what we're doing here is really good, really valuable. The whole world bows low without intimidation. Meaning you don't have to threaten them. You better bow to me or else. That's not really genuine respect, but just natural, spontaneous respect. I don't know about the whole world. Maybe not everybody in the world. I can think of a few people who may not bow. But anyway, a lot of people will bow to those who are keeping good ethics. Power and wealth are gained without effort and work. All beings, including the ones he never knew, bow to a being endowed with ethical discipline, even if his lineage may be unworthy of mention, and even if he did not help or benefit them personally. So, most people do appreciate someone who lives ethically, behaves well, regardless of what their family background or caste may be. Even the dust made auspicious by his feet is raised to the head for its sanctity. Gods and humans prostrate, so it touches their heads and carry it everywhere. Thus, one should think about the benefits as expressed here. So I made a slide, the next slide, just these are from various sources and kind of a summary of benefits of good ethics, faults of not having good ethics. So benefits, it's good to contemplate these, to really get enthusiastic about living ethically and not just because we're supposed to do it, our teachers tell us to do it and so on, but to really from our heart, yes, I want to have good ethics. This is a really important part of my life. So on the benefit side, one is fortunate rebirths in our future lives. So we're going to be born again, and that mainly depends on how we live our life. So there's good situations, there's bad situations like hell or hungry ghost, animal realm. So those are the result of not having good ethics, of breaking ethics. Whereas birth as a human being, as a deva, good situations in Amitabha's Pure Land, if that's where you want to go, or whatever Pure Land. So those require good ethics. And of course, the reason for being born in a good situation is so we can continue learning the Dharma, practicing the Dharma, having good, conducive circumstances to continue following the path to enlightenment. Then attaining excellent qualities and realizations. So yeah, if we hear about calm abiding, bodhicitta, the wisdom realizing emptiness, and we want to have those in our mind, then we need to have good ethics, because without good ethics, our mind will be kind of very unbalanced when we try to meditate, so we won't be able to get very far in our practice. So it's said that ethics is like the foundation of all good qualities and realizations, in the same way that the earth is the foundation of all the beings and things that abide on it. And then third is a person with good ethical conduct has behavior that is non-harmful, speech that is gentle and considerate, and a mind that is peaceful, clear, and subdued. So if that sounds like the kind of person you'd like to be, the way you would like to be, then yeah, this is one of the benefits of ethics. So your mind is peaceful because you have some control over your delusions, your afflictions. They're not just out of control. And also less to feel guilty about or regret, anxious. So if you're not doing harmful things in your life, then you don't have those disturbing thoughts of, what did I do? I feel really bad about that. Oh, what's that person going to think of me? So you're free of those kind of problems. And also, people and even animals are naturally attracted to somebody who has good ethics, and they feel at ease in their presence. And then it's easier to benefit them. Yeah, that's the whole purpose for wanting to attract others, not to be popular, but so that we can help them, benefit them. And then the long-term result of the benefits are attaining the goals of liberation and enlightenment. So without good ethics, no way we can attain those. And also, while we're on the way to enlightenment, if we live ethically, we can be a good example to others, help others to also have good ethics. We need to walk our talk. Those are some of the benefits, and then the faults of improper ethics. So if we don't take care of our ethics and we're careless about our behavior, then one fault is unfortunate rebirth. So we may do something negative, creating the cause for an unfortunate rebirth as an animal or whatever. Being unable to attain things like concentration, calm abiding, bodhicitta, wisdom, and other realizations of the path. So we're just blocking ourselves from attaining those, even if we try really, really hard. And not attaining liberation and enlightenment, but continuing to wander in samsara. So just more and more circling in samsara. We don't have good ethics. And then even in this life, we may commit crimes and end up in prison. So this is what happens to many people. If we don't value ethics, don't take that seriously, then this is what can happen. And then, being in prison is really miserable. You're separated from family, friends. You don't have freedom to go where you want, do what you want. And you have lots of difficulties. It's not a nice environment to live in. So, yeah, it's helpful to contemplate these, as Lama Tsongkhapa says. He says, meditate for a long time on the faults of not guarding ethics and the benefits of guarding them, and then we'll be happy to take care of them. Then on page 253, he says, although there are three kinds of ethics, in the beginning it is important for bodhisattvas to have the ethics of restraint. That's the first one, which is to practice what to engage in and avoid according to the formulated pratimoksha rules. So that includes our vows, whatever level of vows one has taken, 5 or whatever number of lay vows one has taken, or different levels of monastic vows. So these teach us what we should engage in, what we should avoid. And then it says, or what is common with them? I was puzzled by that word. I didn't really find an explanation, but the word in Tibetan could also be translated as concordant. So I was thinking that maybe it refers to, there may be behavior that isn't specified in the vows that we take. Yeah, there's not a specific vow about that, but it's still something that's not in the spirit of keeping the vows. I thought of an example, and now I've forgotten it. It was yesterday. Maybe someone else can think of an example, some kind of behavior that isn't really kind of appropriate for someone who's keeping monastic vows or who's following the Buddha's path. Anyway, maybe it'll come back later. But I think that's what it's referred to. So things that are concordant with our vows, with our practice of ethics. So even if it wasn't specified by the Buddha. Oh yeah, that's right, I remember it. Internet porn. That's not in our vows. It didn't even exist at the time of the Buddha, so there was no need to make a vow about it. But yeah, being a monastic and then going to pornographic websites, hanging out on those, that's not that's not appropriate. Because we did hear about, there was one monk who was doing that, one Western monk who was spending a lot of time at night, and he eventually disrobed. But yeah, so we have to use our intelligence and think that, okay, there's not a vow that says I can't do that, but is that really helpful? Is that really appropriate for a monastic to engage in that behavior? Then it says, if this is guarded, the others will also be guarded. So that means if we take care of this first type of ethics, the ethics of restraint, then it will benefit the other two types of ethics of gathering virtue and benefiting others. If it is not guarded, the others will not be guarded either. Therefore, the compendium of ascertainments, I don't know, is that a Sangha? Says that if the ethics of the bodhisattva vows degenerate, all the vows degenerate. Whoever thinks that the pratimoksha vows are for shravakas, hearers, those working for their own liberation, and rejects their formulated rules of engagement and avoidance, saying, I must train in the other bodhisattva trainings, has thus not grasped the essential point of the training in bodhisattva ethics, for it is taught many times that the ethics of restraint is the basis and domain of. So this next phrase, it says, of the two subsequent sets of vows. So I looked that up in the Tibetan, and I think it actually refers, it should mean the other two types of ethics, not the other vows, but the ethics of restraint is the basis and domain of the other two types of ethics, the gathering virtue and helping sentient beings. So yeah, so it warns here against thinking that, oh, okay, I have pratimoksha vows, I also have bodhisattva vows, And if we think that, oh, pratimoksha vows, those are just for those working for their own liberation, so they're not really important. The bodhisattva vows are the ones that are important, and then neglects the pratimoksha vows. So this is not a correct attitude, because the pratimoksha vows are really the basis of higher forms of practice, like bodhisattva practice. We shouldn't neglect those. Geshe Zopa in his commentary says, the other two types of ethical discipline are actually subsets of the first one. It is the first that makes the other two possible. If the first one is firm, the other two will be easy. If we don't do the first one well, or if we lose the first one, then our bodhisattvas will also, our bodhisattva vows will also degenerate. We will not be able to make a lot of merit or help others effectively. So yeah, that first type of ethics of restraining from non-virtue, keeping our vows, is really important to really practice the other two well, creating virtue and benefiting others. That is why Asanga and other texts say that the serious practice of the first type of ethical discipline is the most important in the beginning. And he also said, restraining oneself from non-virtue should be mental, not just physical and verbal. So restraint, of course, it does include restraining ourselves from doing harmful things with our body and our speech, but mainly it should be mental. He says, remember that all our physical and verbal actions are preceded by a motivation, like desire, hatred, ignorance. And those are also part of the 10 non-virtuous actions. The 3 non-virtues of mind are related to desire, hatred, and ignorance. So he says, not only should we try to avoid the negative actions themselves, we should take countermeasures as soon as a negative motivation arises. So that's part of ethics too. It's not just physical and verbal, but mental, looking out for our mind and avoiding non-virtues. So there's a little bit left in this section, but I don't know if anyone has a question you want to ask. We just have 5 minutes. Any questions?
And I was wondering, with the definition of ethics as the mind of abandonment, a mentality turned away from harming others, would that then fall under that 11th virtuous mental factors of not harming? So like ethics as a whole is that 11th mental factor.
The mental factor of non-harmfulness.
Yes, the bird 10.
Is that the nature? I mean, it does sound like that. Yeah. The mind of abandonment, a mentality turned away from harming others. Yeah. I mean, I didn't come across that specific statement that, oh, it's that mental factor. But when you look at this explanation and the explanation of non-harmfulness, yeah, it does sound like that. So yeah, we do need to have that mental factor of non-harmfulness. We have to really make sure that one is there and strong to be able to practice ethics. Because ethics, of course, it is mainly the mind wanting to abandon harm, but it also includes, stopping ourselves from doing harmful things, negative things, breaking our vows, and so on. It says, ethics is perfected through thoroughly completing one's familiarity with this mind more and more. We have to really build up that mind of not wanting to harm, do anything harmful. How do we do that? Slowly. Well, but yeah, I think really meditating on the benefits, as Lama Tsongkhapa says, the benefits of having good ethics, restraining from harm, and the faults of not doing that. Because we do have imprints from the past. I'm sure all of us in this lifetime have done harmful things, have acted harmfully. So we have that, the imprints there, and those could come up again. And, you know, I sometimes think about, you know, if there was like a really disastrous situation, like a war, and then, you know, a lot of fighting going on, people are even fighting each other for food. I mean, now, you know, our conditions are really nice and comfortable, not too challenging. But yeah, if we found ourselves in a different situation, it's very easy for those old habits to come up. We might find ourselves fighting with somebody over a piece of bread. So yeah, we really have to make firm our wish to not harm and to keep our precepts, keep our vows, keep our good ethics as much as possible. So even if that kind of situation happens, we'll be able to stick with our ethics.
One of the benefits that may be highlighted more in this day and age is that keeping ethics is very important in feeling good about oneself. That often what undermines our self-confidence or sense of self, you know, often
Esteem, self-esteem.
Yeah, self-esteem is seeing that, you know, we want to think of ourselves as a good person, but then we all engage at one time or another in bad-mouthing someone or doing whatever negativity we have habituation for. I was reminded of this over the weekend, that people were asked, what's your main namtok, you know, that superstitious attitude you have about yourself. And it's amazing how many people said that I'm not good enough, I don't measure up. And one way that I seen that we changed that dialogue or that idea is to keep ethics. And then there is some evidence that no, I'm not, I don't have to follow this old thought that I don't measure up, but rather, no, there are areas where I am starting to measure up, and I want to do that more and increase that. And
Yeah, that's good. Good. Another benefit we have to add to the list. You'll feel good about yourself. But that is important because, yeah, I mean, yeah, we don't want that to be diluted, feeling good about yourself because you got 1 million people following you on Facebook, but because you're a good person, you know, you feel good about what you're doing in your life. Okay, so let's stop there. Dedicate.
may what's the word? May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable. and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Lovesome's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Niryatayami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.